Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wearing a designer gown emblazoned with the words, "Tax the rich."
Photos emerged showing the governor unmasked and in close quarters with a large group.
Nancy Pelosi is under fire after surveillance video shows her at a hair salon getting a blowout and not wearing a face mask.
Hypocrisy.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz jetting off to Cancun during an unprecedented crisis in his state.
Privilege for me, but not for thee.
Hey, dirt people, give up your cars, heat sources, and steel buildings while we wait in the lounge sipping Cristal as the G6 gets gassed up.
Few things are more frustrating to working class Americans than one set of rules for elites and another for everyone else.
Climate change is real.
Here's U.S. Senator and climate crusader Elizabeth Warren making headlines in 2020 after exiting a private jet and apparently ducking behind a staffer to avoid the cameras. And here's climate czar John Kerry, who lectures the public on putting an end to fossil fuels, while it's been reported his family private jet released 300 metric tons of carbon since Biden took office.
It's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle.
Nothing riles up the electorate like politicians who don't practice what they preach.
Their faces are open, they get to smile for all of the cameras, and all of the working class people serving them have to be faceless, They are masked.
No, I just have my hair washed. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair?
As I said, really from the moment I sat on the plane, I began really second-guessing that decision.
But what about central bankers? Federal Reserve Bank presidents are not elected officials, which is perhaps why San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly wasn't concerned with how tone-deaf her recent comments on inflation came off.
You know, I have to say that I don't feel the pain of inflation anymore, but I don't find myself in a space where I have to make trade-offs because I have enough. Many, many Americans have enough.
She sold all 70 stocks they owned December 28th of 21. It's literally a few days before the top. These are people that are voting for programs that cause asset price inflation while they own these assets.
But what about the rest of America? Let them eat cake? Well, according to a Bloomberg op-ed, let them eat lentils to beat inflation.
We just got to restock the ice cream right for Easter Sunday because we were, shall we say, enjoying chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here.
From central bankers to House speakers to state governors, hypocrisy among those in power seems to have become more shameless since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only are they breaking their own rules, but they're telling us the negative impacts of their policies could actually be good for us.
The more we see of the just rank hypocrisy of these standard bearers of this particular worldview, I think it just hastens the return to sanity.
As the concentration of power grows, it further separates Washington insiders from the reality of everyday working life. And one of the biggest contributors to this is a system of manipulated money.
In much of the Western world, we have so much price propaganda, and it's driven by who barons declare the winner of the U.S. election, which is the Fed and all the other central banks around the world, just printing money and creating a quintillionaire class.
The Cantillon effect is the phenomenon that describes how those closest to the Fed's money printer benefit to a greater extent than those further away, and how political incentives become less and less about accountability and more about re-elections than anything else. And when the money printer goes burr, it perpetuates and compounds wealth inequality. It benefits corporate executives who are able to use easy money for stock buybacks, and ultimately benefits short-term focused politicians.
So people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are in this lovely situation of paying less in taxes as a share of their income than the poor people who live in that same state. I think people aren't living their values.
If people are no better than their incentives and the actual supply of money can be changed by a small group of unelected fiat overlords who stand to benefit from such a change, do the math. It's no surprise they might want to keep the current system as is. And then consider Bitcoin, a system of rules with no rulers. If no one has the ability to expand or manipulate the supply of money, then government officials would have to be more accountable to the promises they make and be held to a higher standard than when they're close to the monetary spigot. Maybe then societies could finally experience true financial inclusion and a chance to minimize the wealth gap.
Once these fiat dark ages end, and that's what we're witnessing right now. This is what you're seeing on the cable news. This is what you're seeing in the hysterics on Twitter. Once that dies, there's a great opportunity for the ordinary person to build something new.
Fiat has succeeded in keeping the majority of people working harder and harder for less and less. It continues to shortchange wage earners of their most precious resource, their time. But what will happen when people stand up and say no to the hypocrisy and the inequality a system of easy money has created?
If you keep the poor people divided, they can't wake up long enough to do what I did and read about how money works. Because if they do that, we got big trouble, right? Then the slaves will wake up. You don't want to deprogram the slaves. So you have to convince the slaves that it's not the monetary system's fault that you're broke. It's not the monetary system's fault that you continue to work for a set number of dollars and the price of houses just keep going up and up and up. It's not the monetary system's fault. It's the white man's fault, or the black man's fault, or the Asian people's fault. Someone else's fault. Because if the poor people all fight each other, they can't wake up long enough to look up and go, there's not actually that many of them.
We hope you enjoyed that report. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any hard money content.